tube on the boat, and I'm hanging on for about a half hour. Oh my God, hanging on.
If I believe there's a reason for this pain I'm going through, if I believe that leaving me was all that you could do, if I believe that I can feel you by my side, I'll make it through the night. If I believe that time will teach me how to find my way, if I believe that broken hearts grow stronger every day, if I believe that now you're dancing across the sky, I just might get by. If I believe that memories won't always hurt this much, if I believe that I will see your face again, I can wait till then. If I believe I'll hold you in my arms again, I can wait. I know that I can wait. I can wait till then. I can wait till then.
Hi, my name is Joanne Ravicchio, and welcome to the SOA show. Tonight's guest is Bobby and Meg Kenny.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having
No
us.
problem.
Excited to be here.
I'm glad you're here.
Me too.
You know, it's been a long time. I know that you were trying to get in touch with me through SOA, and the thing is that I really didn't take care of that part of it. And then actually when we met, it was interesting that it's a small world.
Such a small world.
I'm from Cambridge.
I know, that's
We
wild.
grew up in the same part of town.
Were you in East Cambridge?
Yeah, I grew up in the Roosevelt Towers.
Okay.
I was
Yep.
a project kid. I was one of the bad ones, you know.
No. Maybe that's why you did so well in your roles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's really remarkable because I remember you. Finally, I realized that you went to school with my niece Jessica, who lives in San Diego now,
It's
and you're going to have
amazing.
to.
I know you were
get in
telling me
touch.
that. I have to find her on Facebook and connect
Yeah,
with her, reconnect.
she's actually a social worker.
It's awesome.
I thought she would be a doctor because her mother died of breast cancer, but instead she decided to be a social worker, and she works for the Veterans Administration. She helps a lot of veterans get housing.
It's awesome.
They're homeless, yeah.
Yeah, much needed.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Not just here in Massachusetts, but I'm sure out in California too.
The one good thing is that she never did any drugs.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
very
great.
proud of her about
Absolutely.
Knock on wood.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah,
That's good.
unfortunately, 80% of the country is affected by addiction. The good thing is that there's 23 million people in recovery,
Yep.
such as yourself.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you'd like to tell us your story
Sure.
and actually what you're going to be doing in the future, that would be great.
Yeah. My gosh.
Especially tell them about your iPod show.
Yeah. Definitely.
iPod.
iPod.
Podcast.
iPod podcast.
Right.
Well, I'm old.
We're still
We're in
learning
the
what
same boat
podcast
you're
even
in.
means. Yeah, so my story of addiction really didn't get into full swing until I was about 20 to 21. And I really call it kind of the perfect storm because up until that point, I had always, taken my grades seriously. And yeah, there were like some recreational, some using, in that realm in high school, but it never really was that attractive to me. And it wasn't until I was about, like I said, 2021, where the recreational use started to pick up a little bit because of the industry that I was working in. And I was dating somebody who was actually incredibly abusive. And I think at the time, at the beginning of the relationship, I didn't really see it for what it was. But he was an OxyContin dealer and provided me these pills for free with no questions asked. And, couple that with the ways in which he kind of isolated me from my family and my peers, and just emotionally abused me. Add that with a falling out that I had with some friends, and a period in my life where I was just feeling incredibly hopeless. And I describe it as that kind of being my outlet or kind of my safe space with that drug. So it really kind of took off, like from day one. It was daily use. And then, fast forward probably, I would say probably 5 years from that point. At that point, the original OxyContin 80s were discontinued, so people were now either gravitating towards heroin or the 30 milligram oxycodone pills, which I fell into that category too. And so, it really wasn't long before it was like, okay, I'm already as low as I'm going to get. I already hate myself more than anybody could hate me. What difference does it make if I start injecting at this point? It was like the last thing that I hadn't really done yet. And once that started, I really hated the skin that I was in leading up until that point, and then to now see where I was and the person that I had become, the things that I was doing that I felt incredibly shameful about, it just made it that much easier to wake up in the morning and say, I don't want to do this thing called life. I don't care anymore. And I just need to find a way to escape. And the only thing that I knew was to just pick up the phone, call the drug dealer, and then my entire day revolved around that. And that went on for a while. And I think it took a period of time where, now I was getting older. I'm like starting to get into my late 20s, always wanted to be a mother, wanted to have a family, and just knew the impact that addiction could have on kids and on a family. And so the last thing that I ever wanted to do was perpetuate this cycle with yet another generation. And so I think right around maybe like 25, 26 was when I was like, okay, you can either go left or you can go right, but you're gonna have to go somewhere at this point. And your options are this. You can either accept the life that you're living right now and understand that that will be the rest of your life, or you can give this thing called recovery a really good shot and maybe try to see if what everybody's telling you about how great this is actually worth it. And it didn't, and I had that conversation with myself, but I can't say that I made a deciding, it wasn't a deciding factor at that moment that I was going to change and stay changed, because it was 2 years of kind of like on and off, like, I call it 1 foot in and 1 foot out of my recovery, and kind of still trying to negotiate the terms of what I wanted that to look like. And that included intermittent using with opiates, and it just was not working for me. And I finally got to a point, it was like, at this point, I had found out about Vivitrol. It was appealing to me because it was a non-opioid medication that I could get once a month as an injection, which prevented me from being able to use the substance that had taken me down to this point. So, I really had to have a truthful conversation with myself and say, the reason why you started to explore this option was to give yourself a break from that full-time job of being a drug addict. So make up your mind. Either go back and do that and live that way for the rest of your life, or give this thing, you know, a fair shot. And that's the that was the moment where I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it right. I'm not going to allow myself to do the thinking anymore. I'm going to surrender to this process. And it became rewarding that all I had to do was show up once a month, get that injection, and in between the injections, I could start thinking about myself in a way that didn't include this addiction. I could focus on things that were not a part of that lifestyle anymore, and feel like I could actually put it behind me. And that's how the ball started rolling, and I stayed that way for 3.5 years. I was on Vivitrol. I've been off of it for over 2.5 now. And in the very beginning of that treatment, I said, well, I'm going to need to do something to fill my time and to feel like I'm somebody with skills and to build my self-efficacy. What is it that I'm going to do that's going to stimulate my brain? So I started looking at programs, master's programs, forensic psychology. I was thinking, you know, what could I do with the knowledge and the lived experience that I've had up until this point and put it to good use? Like, is there a way I can make that work? And I think within a year, I was enrolled in a master's program for clinical mental health counseling. And I graduated from that program in July, and I'm now in the 3rd year of the clinical psychology doctoral program. So it's really kind of like taken off once I made the that choice, that deciding factor of I'm going to give myself a really fair shot.
See that? She was psychologically talking to herself about this. Now,
right.
Did she ever talk to you about it?
Well, at that point she didn't, but lately, since I've been on her podcast, she's been analyzing me. I feel like I'm the guinea pig here. She's figuring me out after all these years, and she's scaring me. I'm saying, oh, geez, am I that bad? Oh, geez, I need help. I really do.
Yeah.
Oh, see?
Yeah, well, hey, it's fun, right? Because here's the cool dynamic about this podcast is, you know, so 6 years for me in recovery, now in the field as a professional. So we're talking about 5 years now of being in the field as whatever you want to call it. I'm not a licensed therapist, but I do therapy, right? And
I'm going to have to go on the couch someday.
Exactly. And so, like, the fun part about that for me is I get to analyze him, I get to analyze myself, and I get these two lenses in which I get to see the world as this person who struggled with addiction firsthand. Now, well, maybe a few different lenses. The child of somebody who struggled with addiction, and now the professional in the field. Not to mention the friend, the girlfriend, the cousin, whatever, of other people that have struggled. And so I don't know how we found that match of being able to create this podcast where all of those worlds can come together. But we have, and that was something that was really uncomfortable for me for the first 3 years of that master's program. I didn't tell anybody that I was in recovery. I didn't know how I was going to be received. I didn't know what my field was going to think of that, and whether or not that would be, stigmatized in some way. And so it took a lot, and it took a lot of people that influenced me to make that decision.
Now, I would say about Frankie, he had his own stigma, so he didn't need anybody else's. It's like we feel ashamed.
Absolutely.
Well, I never did use, but I'm just saying that I could feel what he was going through, and I don't think as a mother, I didn't want to see him suffer.
Right.
I don't know how many times I went into those emergency rooms and I wanted to climb over the bed and just strangle the other person because of the way they were treating him. They weren't treating him with dignity.
Nope.
And having 2 children, one night I had 2 children, 2 different hospitals.
Wow.
And it was like amazing.
Yeah.
So that's why I always say to a lot of them, like when I was sitting there with the Cambridge Health Alliance, I said, first of all, in your emergency rooms, they need to have sensitivity classes. They should learn how to deal with someone.
Right.
It doesn't matter how many times someone goes into recovery or how many times people go into detox.
Right.
You still have to treat them with dignity. And I did mention that, plus to Esprit. You need to see if these people need treatment. You don't just throw them in a room.
Yeah.
That is so uncool. It's just like when they go into detox and they come out, they need people to help them.
Right.
That's why we have recovery coaches now.
Right.
because they'll sit with you and they'll talk about it. You know, you can't like be a mother or father and say, you're gonna do it this way, all right? They're not gonna listen to you. It's just like your kids. You just sit down and tell them what's available to them.
Right, exactly.
And that they have to make that plan for themselves.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
But they do need the additional support. And I think, like, from a clinical standpoint, when I see people struggling that are clients of mine or people that I'm working with or what have you that have a substance use disorder, it's like, you know, one, we can't take any of the behaviors personally because this is just a function of the disorder. The disorder cannot live unless the person is lying, deceiving, manipulating, what have you. And so we just need to be able to recognize that, and I think that's where the sensitivity would come in a place like an emergency room of like, you know, let's see the person that's beneath all of this and try to really focus on that. Let's not take the rest of the stuff personal and just understand that when we see people thriving in long-term recovery, we need to see that when we see the people that are still suffering because they are where we used to be. And there's a reason why we're here doing what we're doing is because recovery is possible. And it's unfortunate that so many people have fallen victim to this. And I just lost a really good friend back in July to an overdose that was in my clinical psychology doctoral program. It's like he had his life ahead of him.
See that?
4.5 years.
You know, I mean, I you know, when we lost Mike Phillips last year, it was totally devastating to us because he was working at Mass General, and you know, he was on my show. He just recently had done, I think, one part of a 2-part story about him, and then we're burying him.
Yeah.
It's really, really horrible.
It is horrible. It's
So
horrible.
now, Barbara, you said that you were been in recovery for 20 some odd years.
Yeah.
What was your? Did you have a drug of choice?
Well, when the doctor slapped me on the butt, right, when I come out, I told him it hurt. I said, I need a painkiller. But actually, I go back to the 60s with acid, you know. I've been there, you know, I go back a little further than you. But I started
we're
out,
close.
I
in age.
started out, you know, doing acid in the 60s. And I wasn't a hippie, but I had a lot of hippie friends that used to get me acid. And then I went into business at 19 years old, and I opened this carpet store in Watertown, and I went straight for, I don't know, 10 years. And every time I became successful, it was like I climbed that hill, right? And when I got right to the top, you know, I was making a lot of money, going to Vegas every month, owning property, and it was like, okay, now I can take it easy. And now I just went downhill fast. And I've done that 3 times in my life. And someone once said to me, they said, Bobby, it's like you feel like you don't deserve to be there. So that's when I needed a good psychiatrist.
There you go, one.
And I started to think about it. I said, you know, I don't know, maybe there's something to that. I don't know. Maybe that did help me. I don't know. What really helped me was going to jail.
Yeah.
You know, I went in 89. I got out in 91, and I opened another carpet store warehouse in Leechmere Square, and I went straight for, you know, a while, and then I slipped a few times. My whole life has been slipping, you know. I've been slipping so much, you know. I should wear non-skid shoes. I mean, I just slipped more than anybody. And I became a pro at making comebacks.
And this was back, obviously now we're talking about fentanyl and carfentanil, but your drug of choice that eventually ended up becoming heroin.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting for me with my experience of OxyContin, and then I was still using when fentanyl was on the streets. Nobody had even used that word yet. Nobody even knew what it was. And just to like compare our stories and see the struggles that young kids are facing now with friends dying on a daily basis, and it's just a lot different from your generation.
I didn't have friends dying, you know, weekly. You know, once in a blue moon, someone might OD. You know, if they did too much, whatever. But not like today.
No.
Not like today. I don't. You know. I don't know what kind of an effect that would have on me as a young kid to watch my friends dying around me. I just can't imagine. But when I see it today, it's like I feel so bad. You know, everybody's losing someone. It's you know.
It is terrible.
Yeah.
You've actually met a lot of people that have lost children being in Connecticut. You know, everybody had the pictures of their loved ones, and they're getting on the ground and being chalked and putting their names in there. So you know, we hurt. We're warriors. You know, I call my warrior family, my warrior moms and dads. You know, we go out there every day trying to promote recovery, trying to get people help that they need. And now we're going to the Fed Up rally next weekend. All right? We need to get something done.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it seems like it's like a roller coaster. You know, you're up and down, up and down. It's like, it's disheartening sometimes because, you know, 72,000 people died last year in this country. You know, and every time I turn around, it's like a lot of Frankie's friends are gone.
Yep.
You know, I had an event for Frankie, and then 2 days later, his best friend committed suicide.
Oh, wow.
He had constant problems with heroin and OxyContin. And the last 4 months of Frankie's life, he went to heroin. And I actually went to wake him and found him dead. I was making him breakfast because he had a bad day the day before. I figured maybe we can just sit down and talk about it. You know, I was his support system. I was his rock. And I was totally devastated.
I'm sure. It's
Oh my God.
horrible.
It's almost 9 years. I do this show, or, you know, trying to help people. We have had treatment centers on, Narcan training. We've had people that have lost children that are dealing with their loss by making teddy bears out of the clothing of people that have passed. Or one woman did 125 portraits, probably more now. And she took their picture and she made it an art form, you know, and a lot of like abstract pictures of them. She actually went to Washington with it.
Wow.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
yeah, it is. You know, and there's so many people out there trying their hardest, but it seems like unless we get everyone together to find a solution, it seems like it's a losing battle.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it feels like it's an uphill battle as long as these substances are available as much as they are on the streets. And, you know, I think I've done some criminal justice advocacy work in my program. I've worked with people that have been involved in the criminal justice system. And so I really kind of see it from both perspectives. I know some people really believe this is a public health issue. Some people really believe this is a criminal justice issue. And I'm really just like dead smack in the middle because I feel for me, in knowing kind of what my addiction looked like, knowing what yours looked like, the people that I know, I don't know that we would have struggled as hard as we did if the substance wasn't as available as it was. And so that goes for OxyContin, that now goes for fentanyl, and so I think we need to really attack it from both ends of the spectrum.
Absolutely. Now, when I went to Washington 4 years ago, they had two events. They had the Fed Up rally, and then they had the End the Addiction that Greg Williams had done. Face the Addiction, I'm sorry. And no one even knew we were there. You know?
Really?
I mean,
Yeah.
we had a lot of people from Massachusetts there. We had Governor Weld was there. Mackey was there. Stephen Tyler was there.
Was he really?
He was there, yeah. And, you know, he lives in Marshfield.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
Oh.
So he was there playing. What was it? Macklemore?
Oh, Macklemore, yeah.
He was there.
Was he really?
Yes, he was.
Wow.
Sheryl Crow.
Wow.
All these people performed
This was in Washington?
in Washington, showing, and we were at the mall. They had a big stage, and they were talking about their recovery. You know, it was a bad weekend. They were expecting like, I don't know if the hurricane was coming up, but it ended up being like a tropical storm. And so half the people that were going to be going didn't make it. But the thing is that no one knew we were there. We walked to the White House, and they let you stay there for about a half hour or so before they break it up. And the news wasn't there. There were no TV channels there.
Really?
Wow.
It was never even written in the papers.
Wow.
When I came home, I wrote a piece and gave it to Billy Turo and put it into the Somerville News Weekly.
Good for you.
But no one knew we were there. And you say to yourself, is this stigma?
Yeah, right.
You know? I'm sure that this one this year, I'm hoping it'll be different.
Yeah.
I might even take my own camera and shoot it.
Yeah.
And then from there, take it back and put it on this show.
Mm-hmm.
Or give it to, you know, Channel 4 or 5 or 7. And you were on Channel 4, weren't you, the other day?
Yeah, I was. Actually, so at my college, William James College, this is the 3rd annual public education series, and each forum has been about the opioid crisis. And I helped plan the second one and was kind of on the subcommittees for the first one. And so I did an interview to kind of tell a little bit about my story and why I started the opioid crisis student group that I have at the school, and plus how the death of our friend and member of our student group impacted us. And so that was part of the forum that we did at my school. So it was really great to be able to share my story, to also honor the person that played such a pivotal role really in me being able to come out about my story, who, as I said, passed away in July, and really kind of, you know, let people know that at William James College we embrace people that are in recovery, and we have a student group in order to really do that and lend our experiences, and you know, so we try to convene the experts in all the different realms, whether it be medicine or psychology or criminal justice or advocacy, we just had it a few weeks back, and it's a full day event, and I'm sure we'll be doing another one next year.
So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I was thinking of poor Bobby sitting there saying,
My
you must be
daughter's not-
very proud
She's
of
not
her.
bigger than me. I slouch. Yeah, I am very proud of her, Joanne. I appreciate the free analysis every week.
You like-
So,
you like
she
the free
doesn't
therapy?
charge me, you know.
Right.
Someone else would charge me $150 an hour. So even though I don't get paid from the podcast, it's like the barter system, you know what I mean? I'll do your podcast, you analyze me. But don't tell anyone, you know. She did tell them what you did, some test. I don't know.
In my personality assessment course,
Oh.
we had to, and like the results clearly are not valid because he didn't take the actual test. So we'll just be fair.
Thank you.
But I had to pretend to answer the assessment as if I was him.
Oh.
And so
Were you close?
I think I was like right on the money, and the results came back, and I was like, well, this looks pretty scary on paper. We should talk about this. And so we did. We had a good laugh, and I was teasing him about it.
Yeah, if she
You're a good
released that paper, I'd be in some
Yeah.
psych hospital right now. But it wasn't fair. I didn't answer the
No,
question.
I answered it
And I
as if
know
I
you-
was you. But,
Yeah, all right.
you know, I do know you pretty well.
So why don't you just do it over again? And
Yeah.
So
Nah, that's all right. We don't have to do that.
you're all set?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm
Doesn't
good.
want to know.
I'm good.
And I think, you know, but that to me, like that stuff is fun. I think, you know, even in my world, when we see some of the, you know, presenting problems that maybe a patient like my dad would have if they came in and sat down in front of us, or the diagnoses that I think he probably, you know, had maybe at one point in his life, like that's scary to people, and nobody really knows what to make of that. And for me, like I've grown up around it my whole life. This is why I'm in the field, is because I can work with guys like this. So I bring my lived experience into my clinical work, and I think it's invaluable to have his voice in that, to be able to hash it out, have fun, talk about all this stuff on the podcast. And you play a big role in the podcast
Oh, I
with the
do.
father-daughter recovery team. It can't be the daughter.
Why don't you
recovery
feel like that? That you play
No, you need me?
we go back and forth all the time, because in the beginning he wasn't doing anything I asked him to do. So it was like, all right, you're fired now. I'm finding
She
a
fired me
replacement.
3 times.
I did.
How can you fire someone? You know, we're not even getting paid.
How do you fire your own dad? I don't know. You made me mad
That's
that
cruel.
day.
No, that's cruel.
But don't you think you add something invaluable to the podcast? The whole point of the podcast is to show the way in which a family can come together, really, after the devastation of addiction, not just on his behalf, but my behalf, right? Because he had good reason for years not to trust me. And I had to work hard in order to get him to rebuild that trust. And now we're both at a solid place in our life, and we can talk about it, and we can have experts on the show, and we can discuss all the different treatment options that are out there. And
You know,
plus,
they
he's
weren't.
my Ed McMahon, so he gives the comic relief.
She hits the button and I laugh. You know,
Right.
there weren't these options weren't out there when I was running
Right.
running wild. Today at least they have programs like people like yourself that are out there helping people. They could come to you and you could advise them, send them. You know where to send them. We didn't have that. At least we have that, and thank God for people that like yourself.
Well, my son, I tried very hard from 1999 until he passed away. There wasn't half of what you have now.
No,
Right.
no, there
Right.
wasn't.
I didn't even, it's amazing that after Frankie passed, I met so many different people in the field.
Right.
That's when I first met Miriam Frangoulis 9 years ago. I met a couple of, probation officers and drug courts. I met people from the Meridian House because I used to do the vigil down at Revere Beach. And because after I lost Frankie, we both lived together, and I just couldn't go back. I went back to the house, but I didn't want to stay there. So I went and lived on Revere Beach for a year, the St. George building. I was there for a year I used to like to walk the beach every day. Do you know I didn't even walk once when I was there for a year?
Wow.
It was horrible. I was just like I was at a place that no one really would want to be.
Yeah.
Patrick was living in North Carolina. He was down there for a while because I had 2 children and they were both addicted, and Patrick just got out of detox, and I sent him down there because he didn't have a job. And I had family that lived next door to me that moved down there, so he was going to their house, and I figured, well, it doesn't matter where you go. If you want to find drugs, you're going to
That's
find
true.
it.
Right.
Yep.
But I figured, at that time, they used to say that don't go back to where, you came from because you get the triggers there.
You're right.
So I figured it would be a good idea to try to help him by sending him down there. And I ended up buying a house in North Carolina, and actually he came back like 8 years ago. And Mason still lives in North Carolina with his mom. But, it was like I couldn't deal with 2 addicts in the house. And then like at the time, Frank and I were separated, and so it was just Frankie and myself. And so when he passed away, I really couldn't just stay there.
Yeah.
And I live in the house across from where he died.
Wow.
But I had 2 pieces of property side by side, and I sold Walter that piece of property.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and so I think about him daily. I always look at that house, and I think about that's where I lost my son. The thing is, he loved that building that we lived in because it was a trucking company that I made into an apartment. And he really loved it. He wanted to stay there, no matter what I did. If I moved somewhere else, but that was where he was going to stay. So he is still there, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And his soul's there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm sure it's hard for you to live across the street, but if for me, the way that I make sense of when people die is, my spirituality and my beliefs kind of kick in and make me feel some comfort that I think that maybe their soul is still here.
Well, it's funny, really, really strange, and I'm going to say it. I think I've said it before. You ever hear the song "The Climb" by Miley Cyrus?
I think I have.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, my son Frankie says, "Mom, that's your song." Right. So Jessica and I were sitting in the living room, and I don't know if you know the history about Frankie with Jessica.
I don't think so.
Okay. Jessica lost her mother at 7 to breast cancer, and my brother had to work earlier in the day, so my Frankie would go over and get them ready for school, comb Jessica's hair, get her ready, and bring her to school. So they had this bond between Jessica and Michael. Michael was the younger brother, he was 5. Frankie would do this every day, and he would go over and sing with them and play with them and get them ready for school. So he had this bond with Jessica that was just huge, just like his mother. The 2 women in his life was his mother and his cousin. All of a sudden, we're in the living room. This is the week after Frankie had passed, and the song came on. I think it was MTV was on at the time. The Climb came on. So I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, I feel a bear hug.
Wow.
And I look over at Jessica. I says, Jessica, you're not going to believe me. You can think I'm crazy, but I just got hugged. She says, so didn't I, Auntie.
Wow.
So, you know, where we both said it, it absolutely happened.
Yes.
But of
I'm a
course,
believer, believe me, when I tell you things that happen to me. I don't have time, but I'm a believer.
Yeah.
You know?
well,
Definitely.
we have about 20 minutes. Go right ahead.
Oh, Jesus, you would say that. No, how I get out of the flooring business and into acting didn't happen until I was 60, but I'm doing a job in Belmont, right? Me and my mechanic are in this basement of an old house. We're doing the whole basement with lino, whatever. And the woman that owned the house, she owned a big estate in Belmont. She didn't live there, she rented it out. But she'd come in, and she'd leave and come back. And I used to call her Giggles. I forget what her name was, because she's always giggling, you know. So I'd say, hey, Giggles, she's Giggle. So anyway, very eccentric woman, you know. So I look over we're doing the job. I look over, I see a woman in a long, like, white house dress, standing at the foot of the stairs that go up to the first floor. And and she floated up the stairs, and I couldn't see her anymore. But when the door opened up there, it's supposed to creak. I know when someone's coming. Didn't hear it. I go over and I look. She's not there. Me and my installer, my mechanic, I get chills. I never saw this before. So he wanted to leave. I had to really talk. I said, we got to finish this job, Stevie. We have to finish it. I don't care. She's not going to bother us, you know. I mean, she's friendly. When you get, you know, most of the women you're around, they're not that friendly. Come on, you get, you know, now you get a friendly one. Stay here, you know. So Giggles comes home, and I say, Giggles, I saw a woman. I know you're going to think I'm crazy. She said, no, that's Mary Ann. So I said, Mary Ann? She says, yeah, my mother owned this house, and Mary Ann fell down the stairs in a diabetic coma and died at the foot of the stairs. I don't, you know, now it's making sense. It's not just me, you know. So I got bit in the neck by a fly, and I'm scratching my neck. She says, what happened to you? I said, I get bit, this is in February. I said, I get bit by this big fly. She said, oh, she's playing with you. She must like you. I said, what? She says, yeah, she turns into a fly, and, you know, she bit you on the neck. Well, when I left, I'm in my van. I had a fly in that van February, March, April to my birthday, May 2nd. The fly disappeared. I used to leave water and food on the on the dashboard. Feed this fly, right? So
That's why it lived that long.
Yep.
So now, I don't know what happened. I had a nice store, a good store in Mystic Ave. I was doing very well selling carpet, flooring. I was there for 10 years, you know. I closed the store. I put a sign up, free carpet. I gave all the carpet away. I sold my equipment. Then I painted and remodeled the store for my friend that owned the block because I was breaking the lease. I felt bad. I said, he said, don't worry about it. So I painted it all. Next thing you know, I became an actor. My whole life changed. My wife says she didn't know this. She said, I don't know this guy. I changed that much. I don't know this person. She says, but I'm happy with the way he ended up, you know. So I became an actor. I've been in, you know, I was in The Fighter with Amy Adams. I did 50 movies. And my whole life, you could never get me in front of a camera when I was younger. I see a camera, I'm running, you know what I mean? So now I see a camera and I'm attracted to it, you know. I just made a complete turnaround. I don't know what happened, but I can't
It
tell.
must be that fly bite.
That's right.
I can't kill a fly to this day.
It
If I
might
s-
be her.
It
my,
might be
my whole
Marianne.
career will go up in smoke. It's only, if I see a fly swatter and someone says, I'm bending it and throwing it away. I'm telling you, it's that serious.
That's
So,
amazing, though.
Yeah.
but yeah, that happened to me. I mean, you know, if my installer didn't see it, I would think it was me, of course, you know. But when I saw, he was almost crying, begging me to leave. You know, I said, we're not leaving. We're going to do this job because once I leave here, I don't know if I could come back.
Yeah.
You know, so we're here. Just you know, I said, don't worry. If she attacks here, I'll go call the police.
What are you going to tell him?
Hey, my installer's getting attacked by a ghost. All right,
go
buddy.
well.
Okay, buddy. So this is, you know. But yeah, that happened.
And he was sober then.
Yeah, I was straight as an arrow. Yeah, yeah.
That's the really interesting piece, because there have been instances that have happened in my life in recovery that they may have happened when I was using, and because I was so caught up under the influence and not my true and authentic self, I just wasn't present in the world. I wasn't receiving the energy around me.
Right.
And when you get the clarity that you get in recovery, and maybe even long-term recovery, because I think the first few years you're really trying to figure yourself out, but you just kind of like receptive to the way in which the world works, and you experience things that like make you maybe, you know, question things or develop meaning in something, or you find your purpose or your passion. And so I think for us, spirituality, I don't know about you, I would guess that it plays as much of a role in your life as it does in mine, but yeah.
If you
What do you
say
think?
so.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree. I always agree
If you
with you,
believe in
Megan.
spirits, then you must
I
be pretty
do.
spiritual.
I do. I don't know how much they guided me, and it didn't do me too much good earlier in my early years, but
Yeah.
maybe they felt bad for me now, you know.
Yeah,
Said,
maybe.
this guy, we got to do something with this guy. He's going off a cliff, you know. I don't know.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
Well, you can't do that. You have to do a few more movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
I just
been
got
in
killed.
50 movies?
I just got killed in Stephen King's series, Castle Rock. I don't even know if I can talk about it.
It's out. Yeah, you can talk about it. It's on Hulu.
It's a 10-episode series on Hulu, and we do a big jailbreak. Killed two guards. Sorry.
You should have done that back in what year?
Woo.
I said
89,
life
91.
imitating art, or art imitating life on this one.
But I get shotgunned. I get killed in the end. You see me lying on the floor, big hole in me. Yeah, I've done a.
You look pretty good for a dead guy.
I know.
I come back. I told you I make comebacks. Now I'm coming back to life.
Yeah, yeah.
But I never had so much fun in my life, you know.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So,
Like you said, at 19, you had your first business,
yeah.
and you were
I owned
successful.
12 pieces of property at one time.
That's wonderful.
I had 2 boats, one in one. I had condos in Florida. I mean, I really hustled, you know. I was I was in business all my life. And every
Are you
time I got,
retired?
huh? I know I'm an actor now, you know, but it's,
Yeah, I know, but it's like fun now, isn't it?
yeah. That's all I do. You know, I work on my house. We have a barn in my backyard. I'm trying to get it converted to a carriage house, you know.
Oh, good.
So
I need a place to live.
Yeah.
No,
Anyway,
no.
Join
no.
the club. That's what I said too.
Maybe she can move out and, you know, leave me in peace.
You'll miss her.
Yes.
She'll be right. I could yell out the window, "Hey, Megan!" It's like 30 feet away, you know, 40 feet away. So just wave, you know.
Right, exactly. But I mean, look at that. That's the beauty of where you can go once you kind of get your head together, leave the substances behind, and allow your true, authentic self to find meaning, and to find purpose, and to flourish. So, at how old were you when you made that career change?
60.
Okay. Who in their right mind would ever advise anybody to do that?
People laughed at me when I got in the business.
Yeah.
A lot of the younger guys say, "You crazy?" A couple of years later, they're coming to me. "Can you get me a part? You know, can you get me a part?"
I mean, but it takes
Oh,
a lot of
what?
guts.
What? You coming to me? Yeah. Now they come to me. "Will you give us some acting lessons?" You know, acting lessons. I feel like I'm gonna wake up someday and they're gonna find out I don't know what the hell I'm doing, because I'm not acting. I just take myself to the set, and that's, you know, people say, you know, Bobby, I love your style, I love your acting. Yeah, listen, the only time I'm acting is when I'm talking to my daughter's school teacher or my grandmother or the priest. Then I'm acting. When I'm up on stage, I'm myself. So I can't teach you how to be me. You have to find out how to be you.
Yeah.
You know, and just don't try not to act, you know. Everybody's trying to act. They think they have to be this one or that one. You don't have to do that. Just be yourself, and you'll do fine, you know. So all these acting lessons people take, this method, that method. Come on.
You just have that personality.
Maybe I'm lucky, you know. I don't know. I'm thinking it's that easy that they're gonna find out this guy doesn't know what he's doing. But really, it's not about it's not about knowing how to act. It's knowing how to bring yourself to the set.
Right.
You know.
You have to really like yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And have the confidence to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I don't know.
Well, and you must have. I mean, at 19, you had your first business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I was always a hustler. I mean, you know, from the time I was like 6, 7 years old, I was either shining shoes, selling paper, something. I haven't been broke since I was about 6 years old. You know, people say, oh, I went broke. Even though I went downhill every time, when I was about 75%, say 25% from the bottom, right? I see the bottom coming real close. I managed to stop and make a comeback. I never really hit bottom because that scared the hell out of me. I grew up in a housing project with 9 kids, and we didn't have, like, you know how people put milk in their cereal? We had to use tea because we couldn't afford the milk, you know. By the time at 9 o'clock coming to school, I get stomach pains, you know.
Because you're hungry.
Yeah. And when I was 13 years old, people say, oh, you grew up in a big family. That's great. You know, 9 kids. Yeah, but it has its drawbacks. They said, well, what are the drawbacks? I said, well, when I was 13 years old, I went for my Social Security card. They told me my birthday was May 2nd, not May 3rd. They told me my middle name was Joseph, not William. I didn't know who the hell I was. I go home, running home to my mother. I said, Ma, who am I? They told me my birthday's May 2nd, not May 3rd. She said, they did? I said, yeah, you know, what's up with that? She said, Bobby, I had 9 kids. Give me a break, for Christ's sake. So I said, Ma. She said, can't you ever look at the bright side? I said, there's a bright side? She said, there's always a bright side. I said, all right, Ma, what's the bright side? You know, every year on your birthday, May 3rd, I make you strawberry shortcake, and she did every year. I love strawberry shortcake. Yeah, Ma, you know how every year, the day before your birthday, you say, Ma, can I have a piece today? I can't wait till tomorrow. Yeah, Ma. She said, no, you don't have to wait till tomorrow. I said, Ma, what about my middle name? They told me it was Joseph. They did? I said, yeah, Ma. You like Joseph? No, her father's name is Joseph. My brother's name is Joseph. I said, Ma, I love Joseph. She said, well, there you go. That's the bright side. That's how I grew up. You know? So I was hungry. I went and got a job at Stop and Shop right after that because I got my Social Security card. I got my sister Kathy a job there a year later. She just retired as vice president of the whole company. Never went to college, just worked hard. They appreciated her work, worked her way up. During the blizzard of '78, she was managing Government Center. She walked from East Cambridge to the Government Center, shoveled off the front of the store. The owner happened to come by, he heard about it, come by and saw her. And says, how did you get over here? She said, I walked. He said, from where? East Cambridge. Who shoveled off it? She said, I did. From that day on, she just climbed. Mm-hmm. She ended up the vice president in charge of all the real estate. She would go to Washington every week, the investments. And it's worth a fortune.
Yeah.
She didn't throw me a cheese sandwich.
But I think the key to that is like, and I say that to people now when I work.
I'm kidding. She's beautiful.
When I work with people, is like, get hungry about something. You know, like now it's my recovery. It's about helping people that are still struggling. That I can identify with that, I can connect to it, and I can let them borrow my hope if they don't have it themselves right now, and give them the opportunity to build it. Because I know that when I was in that place sick and suffering, when he was in that place sick and suffering, everybody counted us out. And everybody said the way we were going to do our thing called recovery, because we've done it in a way that's not as conventional as you may expect, that we have the odds stacked against us. And maybe we did, but we pushed through it. We made it work. We did not become a statistic. And I think a lot of that has to do with building your drive, finding your passion, and being hungry and going for it. And try to really push yourself and through uncomfortable situations. I mean, nobody said recovery was easy, but we have all said that it's worth it, and there's a reason for that.
Absolutely.
You know, so.
You know what? We're all different.
Yep, and that's right. And we're all different.
What
We're
works
all
for one
different.
person may not work for another, you know.
Yep.
Well, I can see that you're a very, very, very confident woman, and you're very strong.
It's taken a long time to get to that place. It really has.
Yeah.
And
It
I've
wasn't always like that.
and I've had a lot of support and a lot of people guiding me to this place. And I think, you know, for me, I finally feel comfortable in my own skin and what I know.
Isn't that what usually happens, that we look for something, whether it be alcohol or drugs, because you don't feel comfortable yourself?
That's right.
First of all, I mean, now they're saying that there's, you know, mental health issues, you know, dual diagnosed.
That's right.
And now there are facilities that take care of both. You have to take care of the mental health before you can become, you know, and before you can stop doing what you're doing and come into recovery.
Yeah, it's true. And my argument for that is, and you know, maybe I'm biased because I work in the mental health field, and I feel like a lot of my underlying reasons, you know, some of the reasons there were, you know, were mental health related that led me to look for the escape in drugs. But I would say there's a lot of mental health disorders, symptoms, whatever you want to call it, that's underneath the addiction. And we really got to look at that. Because you have to ask yourself why it is that you're in so much pain. What is the hole that you're trying to fill? What's the void you're trying to fill with the drugs and the alcohol?
Well, there's a lot of addiction everywhere. There's foodaholics, there's alcoholics, there's not only drugs, there's workaholics, you know.
I guess you can get addicted to anything, you know.
Right.
Really.
There's a lot of addictive behaviors out there.
Yeah, a lot.
I'm just sad that, well, first of all, like I said, Frankie was 12 weeks laid up in a bed with OxyContin, and then I felt that he never had the strength to actually put himself into recovery. Great individual, you know. He loved to joke around. He made people laugh all the time, and I gave him a book. I said, "Here's a journal. Why don't you start writing all these skits?"
Yeah.
You know, and he did write in the journal, and he wrote. Actually, I've been trying to get it put into music, but unfortunately, it was in his deep addiction. So, and basically, there was a lot of loathing of self in that dialogue that he wrote. But, you know, he had a talent, and he could have made something of it. I tried reaching out to Lenny Clark one time.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. See, I went to school with him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. My maiden name is Boca, and he's Clark. So he was right next, his room was right next to mine.
Wow.
And he was down in what do you call it, Martha's Vineyard at the time. So there was an article, and it may have, the letter that I wrote might have gone just to the particular newspaper and not to him.
I worked on a couple of movies with Lenny. I've known him since he was a kid. He was down in Springfield Street, Ding
Yeah.
Hose, down way,
Oh, yeah.
way back.
You know what's funny? I worked for Verizon for 28 years, and one day, and I was an operator, actually 411, and who do you think I get but Lenny? Because at a certain time, now they have this universal hub, so you can get someone in Hawaii, but before then, and back in the 70s and 80s, you could get someone in your own city calling you. I know my brother called me one time, someone stole my car. So I'm like, who is this? It's Eddie. Poor kid, someone stole his car on him. We found it though.
Oh, wow.
The
Yeah.
next day, yeah, my ex-husband and I went out and we did find the car.
Did you recognize Lenny's voice?
Yes. And
Very
I said,
distinct voice, yeah.
I said, Lenny, I said, I went to school with you. He says, well, why don't you come down and see me? He wanted me to come down to Springfield. I'll let you in. I said, okay. Well, I see him a lot because I work at Somerville High School,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and he actually lives on
Right.
a street. I don't want to say what street it is because he might have people
Yeah,
that are
right.
fans that are going to go
Right.
and stand in front of his house.
Yeah. Right.
No, but he's funny. I would walk by and we'd chit chat for a little bit, but I never told him the story about how I tried to get in touch with him before Frankie died. And the thing is that I knew that he was in recovery himself. You know, and there's a lot of actors and actresses as well as comedians that are in recovery.
That's right.
Lots.
Yeah, a lot.
And like I said, I knew that when I was in Washington 4 years ago, and Steven Tyler was there talking about his. And we all know that he had a problem because he would go to Belmont, to McLean Hospital.
Right.
They had a unit there. You know, the thing is that recovery is possible, and it's a great thing that people are talking about it now, like someone like yourself and you. Before, no one would talk about it.
No.
I would never talk about it.
Yeah.
Everybody knew I was, doing drugs, but I always tried to hide it, even though I knew people knew. I just
Right.
wouldn't come out and say, But once she convinced me, was it you that convinced me?
I think so. But people had already known.
I
You weren't
know,
like displaying it on a
Yeah,
public
but you
platform.
convinced me to tell stories that I never told, and I told
This
them.
is true.
But I felt free after that, I said, now they know I'm crazy, so it doesn't matter. So
Embrace
anything
it,
I do,
embrace it.
they'll say, oh, he's crazy, don't worry, he's okay. I have an excuse now.
Oh, look at even Jimmy Tingle came out about his recovery. You know, even the mayor of Marty Walsh, he said the same thing. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the beauty of kind of where we're at right now is we have a long way to go. But I think the way in which we're getting there partly is because people with lived experience are actually not staying silent anymore. And it's this whole recover out loud movement.
Absolutely, and I think it's a great thing.
I do too.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
yep.
I do too.
That's the only way that we're going to get rid of stigma.
Yep.
Is to talk about it.
Face it,
Yep.
And there is no shame.
No.
You know, it's not your parenting skills.
Right.
You know, you didn't cause it. You didn't create it. You know, but you can be there to help. You know, and if more people come out and say, hey, I got a problem, I need to work with it. You were talking to yourself, and that's great. That's why you're doing what you're doing.
What's that
Being a
called,
psychologist.
self-analysis?
Yeah, exactly.
But
They
I
say
used
the
to do the
smartest-
same thing, you know.
Yeah.
And that's why I never went to a grief group or anything. I worked on myself. So I could have been a clinician.
Yeah, totally.
you know.
Totally. That's part of the
So-
work of being
Who knows
in the
you
field.
better than you?
Exactly.
That's right.
Exactly.
Really, when you think about it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's true.
Do you believe that we almost went for a whole hour?
Did we really? Whoa.
We only have 2 minutes left. Is there
Whoa.
anything that you want to tell the people out there you want?
I'm an hour older now than I was when I come in here. Do I look any different? No.
Do you feel any different?
I feel great. Every time I'm around Joanne, I feel great. She makes me feel good. I just uplifting. I love to be around people like you.
So then you have to come to Washington with us next week.
Yeah.
I don't know if I can. I'm supposed to be starting on something that I
Oh, you
really
are?
can't talk about.
Oh, I haven't
yeah.
heard about this yet.
Yeah, no, I
I
can't.
think it's wonderful.
I
that
can't.
you only started 10 years ago and
Yeah.
you've been in 50 movies.
Yeah, yeah. I've been, I've done I play a lot of gangster roles and in the independent movies, Don Vito, Don this, Don that.
I have a brother, Dawn.
Do you?
I do.
I feel like my name is Don Angelo. I did a web series in Connecticut, mob web series. I think I'm Don Angelo in that one, So I'm a Don too,
I think for me, parting words is we're so invested right now in the recovery community and in advocacy work to decrease the stigma. And for me, I think at this point in my story and my journey of whatever this thing is that I call recovery, I am calling on my fellow recovery community to stop the stigma amongst each other. To me, we're all working towards the same end goal. It does not matter how we get there. And we should just be uplifting one another about the ways in which we do it.
Good night, everybody.
Good naga.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having
and
us.
I think that, it's really a wonderful story, and I like the way you talk.
Thank
I like. Can you be my psychotherapist? I think that it would be a great idea.
She's done wonders for me.
No.
He's been 50 different personalities.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
Is he Sybil? No.
Yeah.
I don't know who I am. I
No.
don't know who I'm going to be when I wake up tomorrow. That's the truth.
That makes life exciting.
No, it's really great that. Well, we're still on with YouTube, but the thing is, it's remarkable. Just what you've done
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't seen any of your movies yet, but I will. I'm going to have to turn around and watch them.
Oh, yeah, I'll get you some.
I mean, well, you know a lot of the same people, and yet I've never met you before.
Yeah, I know. Isn't
I
that
know.
something, huh? You're an East Cambridge gal. I grew up in East Cambridge. And
Yeah. I still have a house there, at Strapper Street.
Oh, do
really?
you?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, my dad lived to 92. And so my brothers and I kept the property. And, yeah, we still
Wow.
have it.
That's awesome.
We probably walked by each other more times in East Cambridge.
know.
You know? We had to.
I know.
And to know the Toros?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Toros, a great family. Great family.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Pat was Emily, the mom.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that woman.
Mm-hmm.
She always made me feel good, and I used to always see her. She had all those boys, right? And she'd be waiting for a bus. She would go places, just get on the train and go.
Wow.
I'd be having them drive me around.
I
everywhere.
know. Your chauffeur.
Yeah.
Definitely.
She lived to 96.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, very, very nice woman.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to go home and go and take a nap.
Yeah. Sounds
I
good.
Well, I
already
should go to
took
sleep
mine
for the
before I came here. I really needed it. Just a half hour is good, you know?
Did you just come back from Florida?
I know. Why?
No, I was in Atlanta.
Because you look tanned.
Someone else said that
I
to
know,
me,
you
too.
do.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's one of the herbs I'm taking. Someone else said that to me. You been tanning? I said, no.
What herbs? I'm going to get some.
I
know.
take...
He takes everything.
My whole counter. I do the blending in the morning with everything. I throw everything in there, and, you know.
It's those amino acids I gave you.
The amino acids, maybe, yeah.
Definitely.
That's the only thing new that I'm taking. You know.
Oh, it's supposed to make you, doesn't it make amino acids make you feel, like hot?
Maybe
Do you
that's
feel
it.
hot?
Yeah, I kind of do.
So maybe that's why you're
I
trying
am,
to.
but
Yeah,
I've been
maybe.
told I was hot, a long time ago. Just kidding.
He's a hot old man.
Just Just kidding. No.
No, that's good. So we are done for the night.
All right.
And you'll be
Awesome.
able to see it on YouTube under Somerville Overcoming Addiction.
I can't wait.
And then tomorrow you'll be able to see the show if you go on www.somervillemedia.org.
Okay.
And then you can just, you can bring it down. It says stream,
Okay.
and you'll see past shows.
Awesome. I can't wait to share it. You'll have to share it on Facebook.
Yeah, you have that information, or did you log it?
I need to write that
Well,
down.
you know,
Right.
when you look at, when I said that you were going to be on the show,
Yeah,
it's
click
right
on that
there.
link. Okay. All
It
right.
says Somerville
Oh,
Media.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you'll be able to see the past show. It's just that Dave Ortega, he will put it on tomorrow
Okay.
so that you can see it.
Awesome.
But YouTube, it should be there tonight.
Awesome. I can't wait.
Yeah,
Thank
I can't
you,
either.
Joanne, for having us on.
Yeah, thank you
I would
so
love-
much.
I would have to have you come back again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice to
So
finally
when
get
you're
to-
doctor,
Yeah, Dr. Kenny. A couple more years. And then that's
You're gonna make me call you doctor.
everybody. No, I don't know. That's like super egotistical though. Like in the beginning to say, "Oh, I want you to call me doctor." I'm not a medical doctor, so it feels a little weird. So I'm not. I don't need to hang on to that to know who I am. So you can call me whatever you want.
Maggie.
Yeah,
That's all
that
I've been
works.
calling you
That
now
works.
since you were a kid.
that sounds good. I better take this off. We can't have this leak.
No, I know. All right, I'll leave this here. Have you really? My friend has the same exact table.
Yeah. What was it, made in the 20s?
Something, yeah. I think she got hers at IKEA.
See Bobby Stone?
That's what
Well, I'm not on film, man. My career just got ruined.
Amino acids.
Yeah, seriously. No, the amino acids. my brain is right.
No, thank you. We will see each other again.
Thank you so much. I love doing this. Thank you. I appreciate it.
We'll have to keep in touch. Still, yeah. So down there is a place called, where? I'll let him. Is,